It's hardly a secret that making all but the tiniest movies is extremely expensive. All the same, most movies are made with sensible financial parameters that ensure they're able to turn a profit, so long as everything goes according to plan. And yet, according to plan is easier said than done. I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture, and here are 10 insane reasons movies were so expensive. Number 10. It went 104 days over schedule. Jaws. It's often said not to work with animals or children in Hollywood, but as Steven Spielberg learned while shooting Jaws, shooting on the open ocean with a waterlogged mechanical shark ain't no picnic either. Spielberg's groundbreaking blockbuster was given a $3.5 million budget with a 55-day shooting schedule. But by the time the masterful thriller was finally in the can, it had been filming for 159 days. This left the shoot running 3.5 months over schedule, while causing the budget to balloon to $9 million, which was hardly chump change in 1975. As the first major movie to be shot on the ocean, nobody was prepared for quite how treacherous it would be, with Spielberg himself even admitting that he was, quote, naive about the ocean. Aren't we all, Steven? Aren't we all? Shooting at sea caused camera equipment to get water damaged, unwanted boats to sail into frame, crew members to get seasick, and worst of all, the mechanical sharks to regularly break down due to all their saltwater intake. This all contributed to Spielberg being able to shoot just a few hours per 12-hour filming day. And yeah, after all of those calamities, once filming had wrapped, Spielberg assumed his career was over, given that no filmmaker had taken a film so far over schedule before. But of course, Jaws went on to smash box office records, becoming the highest grossing film ever at the time, and vindicating what was nevertheless an utterly roughshod production. Also, it's a masterpiece, so it has that going for it too. Number 9. Cast and director salaries cost $50 million. How do you know? Rom-coms are historically on the cheaper end of genres, even when huge stars are involved. But 2010's How Do You Know ended up with a budget running just shy of the price tag for the first Iron Man. Despite its lack of complex visual effects or time-consuming camera setups, How Do You Know cost a ludicrous $120 million to make, an outrageous figure any way you slice it. For context, 2023's hit rom-com Anyone But You was made for just $25 million. Ultimately, more than 40% of the budget paid the humongous salaries of the cast and legendary director James L. Brooks, with Brooks pocketing $10 million, while Reese Witherspoon took $15 million, Jack Nicholson got $12 million, Owen Wilson got $10 million, and Paul Rudd, well, he got $3 million, that is, not $3. All the same, that leaves $70 million on the table for shooting, which still seems like an absurd figure. The budget reportedly ballooned due to Brooks' meticulous approach to shooting and post-production, with filming lasting around 8 months, while it was another 14 months before the film was finally released in theaters. And to rub salt in the wound, Brooks' film was largely panned by critics and ultimately grossed just $48.7 million globally, barely a third of its budget. Yeesh. Number 8. Shooting the entire film outside and in sequence. The Revenant. Alejandro G. Inarritu's Oscar-winning drama The Revenant was initially budgeted at a seemingly modest $60 million for a technically lavish epic western starring the likes of Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy. However, by the time that production had wrapped, Inarritu had spent $135 million, a byproduct of the film's arguably unhinged shooting process. Now, The Revenant was shot over a period of 9 months, ultimately running 3 to 4 months longer than was initially planned. This was due to Inarritu's decision to shoot the entire film chronologically, as well as his and cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki's desire to film only in natural light conditions, limiting the amount of footage which could be shot each day. Shooting time was further reduced by the remoteness of the locations, ensuring that travel ate up 40% of their daily production time. Add to this the costs of relocating traveling from an unseasonably warm Canada to Argentina to shoot the film's ending, and it shouldn't be surprising that Inarritu blew through more than double his original allotted budget. Unlike most entries on this list though, it definitely paid off, as The Revenant grossed $533 million worldwide, while scoring rave reviews and winning Oscars for Inarritu, DiCaprio, and Lubezki. Number 7. Hyperinflation in Argentina. Highlander 2: The Quickening. Because it wasn't enough that Highlander 2: The Quickening turned out to be one of the worst sequels of all time, it also ended up costing way more than anyone expected. Highlander 2 was originally set to cost around $20 million, just a hair above the $19 million price tag of the original film. But the Argentina set shoot faced an unexpected setback due to runaway hyperinflation in the country, meaning that everything the crew wanted to do ended up costing an obscene amount of moolah. As a result, producers Peter S. Davis and William N. Panzer had to beg foreign distributors to help cover the shortfall, while also investing $4 million of their own cash. But by the time the shoot had finally secured the services of Sean Connery to reprise his role, earning a princely $3 million for just 6 days' work, Highlander 2's budget had swelled to $34 million buckaroonies, almost double that of the original. Even though the first film became a word-of-mouth hit on home video after underperforming at the box office, Highlander 2 didn't benefit at all from the series' cult fandom, failing to recoup even half of its budget on the big screen. Number 6. It was rushed through production. Lethal Weapon 4. To look at Lethal Weapon 4, you'd probably never guess that its budget skyrocketed to an obscene $150 million, a figure almost double the combined budgets of the first 3 films in the series. Just let that sink in. Or exploding toilet. Pick your poison. As for how the sequel cost so much, well, development burned through numerous writers and countless script drafts. The production parting ways with staple Jeffrey Boehm, but the big factor was time. Warner Brothers wanted to have a surefire box office smash ready to commemorate their 75th anniversary, and saw Lethal Weapon 4 as the most viable prospect. And so, the production paid top dollar to speedily secure Mel Gibson's involvement, paying him a stonking $30 million alone before ambitiously/foolishly starting to shoot the film just 6 months before its July 1998 release date. Moreover, shooting began without a completed script, causing filming to drag on until May, just 2 months before Lethal Weapon 4 was set to premiere. This led to an extremely rushed post-production process, which naturally proved infinitely more expensive than it otherwise would have. And while the film's monstrous budget impacted its bottom line, the fact that it released to mixed reviews and grossed a not bad $285.4 million is honestly nothing short of a miracle. I kind of think the film itself is a bit underrated too, and a really solid send-off for the series overall. And just to throw my 2 cents into all this, I kind of think that Lethal Weapon 4 is a bit underrated, and a really solid send-off for the series overall. Those end credits especially are just gorgeous. I love those guys. Number 5. It was originally intended for a theatrical release. Theodore Rex. Now, if you're wondering why anyone would spend $33.5 million in 1996 on a direct-to-video buddy cop film starring Whoopi Goldberg and an anthropomorphic dinosaur, well, the answer is quite simple. It was originally made for cinemas. Theodore Rex was initially set to be released by New Line Cinema over the 1995 holiday period, but after marketing for the film was disastrously received in test markets like Las Vegas, Memphis, Portland, Maine, and Providence, the distributor decided to cut their losses and release it on video instead. At the time, this made it the most expensive direct-to-video release in Hollywood history. And to make matters worse, the budget had been additionally inflated by $2 million after Goldberg attempted to back out of the production, resulting in her salary being given a $2 million boost. Theodore Rex went on to be universally panned, evidently failing to turn a profit on home video either, with Goldberg later calling it the only project she ever regretted working on. The current whereabouts of Theodore Rex himself are unknown. If you see him in public, do not approach. He's got a lust for vengeance, and he'll definitely take it out on you. Number 4. Production took 2 years. Town and Country. Though it didn't cost quite as much as How Do You Know, Peter Chelsome's 2001 rom-com Town and Country was an even bigger financial disaster. Production began on a sensible enough budget of $44 million, with star Warren Beatty being paid $10 million upfront for his lead role, but by the time that it was over, that figure had exploded to an absurd $105 million. Shooting was intended to run from June through to October or November 1998. It was still going in April 1999, a whole 5 months after the scheduled wrap. The reasons for this were myriad, from Beatty's request for many takes per scene to the fact that the script wasn't finished before shooting had started. As Gary Shandling and Diane Keaton had to leave to shoot other projects, filming was suspended for 10 months. In the interim, screenwriter Buck Henry was hired to pen a new draft of the script to the tune of $3 million. Reshoots ultimately took place in the spring of 2000 and lasted 2 months, featuring numerous elaborate sequences which further pushed the budget skyward. And there was no relief when Town and Country finally came out, as it was critically panned, received 3 Razzie nominations, and grossed a pitiful $10.4 million worldwide. Oof. Number 3. Every decision Tommy Wiseau made. The Room. Though it's far and away the cheapest movie on this list, it's still maddening to look at Tommy Wiseau's The Room and appreciate that it cost $6 million to make. Like, where did it all go? To be clear, that's $2 million more than one of the year's most acclaimed movies, Lost in Translation, ended up costing. With its lack of name talent and generally tawdry production values, it's tough to fathom how Wiseau spent so much. Or it would be if not for star Greg Sestero's acclaimed memoir of the experience, The Disaster Artist. Wiseau himself admitted that the budget skyrocketed due to a number of cast and crew members needing to be replaced throughout the ramshackle shoot. Sestero, meanwhile, claims that Wiseau built sets for sequences that could have been shot on location, needlessly shot scenes multiple times, and forgot his lines so often that even basic scenes took days to finish. Furthermore, Wiseau spent a huge sum on purchasing cameras rather than renting them as is industry standard, and also chose to shoot on film and HD video simultaneously, requiring 2 camera crews to be on set at greater expense. The precise means through which Wiseau was able to raise so much money remains a matter of discussion for fans. An inheritance, importing men's fashion, real estate deals, but perhaps the most shocking outcome of all is that The Room's infamous reputation has allowed it to gross $5.2 million worldwide. Goddamn. Number 2. The Rock's constant lateness. Red One. Though the recently released Christmas blockbuster Red One certainly looks expensive, expensively bad, does it really justify an eye-watering $250 million price tag? Well, according to an expose published by The Wrap back in April, Red One's original production budget was a slightly more sensible $200 million. The costs were driven up by $50 million throughout shooting due to Dwayne Johnson's constant lateness to set. Johnson was alleged to regularly show up 7 to 8 hours late and even missed numerous days of shooting outright, leaving the production burning money with overtime for its crew. Some quarters laid additional blame at inexperienced producer Hiram Garcia, who, in a not-so-coincidental twist, is Johnson's former brother-in-law and business partner. Though Garcia disputed the inflated budget, it's tough to square those numbers away, especially with Johnson freely admitting his lateness in a more recent interview. Amid negative reviews and a crowded box office frame, it's near impossible for Red One to turn a profit theatrically. Though, given that it was originally conceived as a direct-to-Amazon Prime release, that's at least not the end of the world in this particular instance. Well, at least not for the studio. Us, the people? Well, there's no compensation to make up for the eyeball damage those trailers did to us all, I gotta tell ya. And number 1, Michael Cimino's perfectionism. Heaven's Gate. One of the most infamous productions in Hollywood history, Heaven's Gate was a 1980 epic western written and directed by Michael Cimino, who, fresh off the Oscar-winning success of The Deer Hunter, was effectively given carte blanche by United Artists to realize his cinematic vision. All the same, Heaven's Gate started out with a $11.6 million budget, which bloated to a scorching $44 million by the end of production. This was largely attributed to Cimino's exacting filmmaking style, causing the shoot to fall behind schedule almost immediately. Cimino had actors perform up to 50 takes, held off shooting while waiting for appealing clouds to enter the frame, ordered sets to be torn down and rebuilt for petty reasons, and even had an irrigation system built under land where a battle scene was to be filmed, to ensure that the grass looked a vibrant green. By the end of the 11-month-long shoot, Cimino had shot over 1.3 million feet of film, resulting in a 5-hour first cut, which Cimino spent most of 1980 whittling down to a just-releasable 219 minutes. The gargantuan nature of the production and the perception of Cimino as being recklessly self-indulgent doomed Heaven's Gate with critics before it even came out, with a panicky United Artists demanding recuts as a reaction to the initial wave of bad press following its premiere. Sadly, the damage was done. The ensuing financial failure of Heaven's Gate destroyed United Artists, and it was thusly canonized as an example of Hollywood hubris, a step too far that necessitated a shift to studio-controlled blockbusters with mainstream appeal, which of course dominated the following decade. But regardless of whether Cimino's direction was reckless, Heaven's Gate is something of a minor masterpiece, a gorgeous, sweeping, and operatic western whose scale, majesty, and tragedy is there for all to see in the final cut. The late Chris Christopherson is phenomenal in the film, as are the likes of Christopher Walken, Jeff Bridges, and Isabelle Huppert. Yeah, it's extremely lavish and lost a lot of money, but for far too long, its status as a box office bomb has consigned it to irrelevancy. Make sure you watch it if you haven't, because you might just be missing out on a new favorite western.